All right, YouTube. This Detroit's HPTV coming to you out of Detroit, back with another video on this Tuesday morning. We got to kind of follow up on what I talked about yesterday, which is the increasing rhetoric that ICE and Homeland Security are coming for Black Americans. Now, this is the new Democratic Party talking point that Black people who were born in America and who are American citizens should be fearful of ICE and the federal government. They are increasingly trying to make this a Black community problem by politicizing every arrest and hiding the truth and facts from the masses of people about what's really going on in Chicago. Now, I got some clips I want to show you out of Chicago. I want you to see what the people are saying in Chicago, and I want you to see what the mayor is saying. The mayor is becoming so unhinged, he's actually talking Civil War talk, as if Chicago, as a city, wants to go to war with the rest of the country or to join forces with some other type of liberal city. And it's insane the lengths he's going to protect these immigrants. But you can understand if you believe the rumors that are out there about him actually being in debt with the cartels. And the cartels are the motivation for him to stand and fight for immigrants harder than the citizens because he's owing to the cartels. Now, they told you that they're attacking Black people and they attacked the building in Chicago. But in that building, they had 37 Trinidad Agua gangs from Venezuela. 37 in one building. Now, why is the Democratic Party so in an uproar about protecting the illegals? I think, personally, they don't care anything about the illegal immigrants. They don't care about the LGBTQ plus community. They care about maintaining power, and they will do anything to stay in power. And right now, they're counting on using the Black community as human shields, as hostages. They got the Black community between ICE and the immigrants. And they're constantly on CNN and mainstream media stoking this fear that the Black community is under attack because illegal immigrants are being removed. But the Democratic Party embedded the immigrants in our communities. They put us on the front line in defense of ICE and Homeland Security coming into our communities by bringing them there. They didn't want to keep them in their communities. They put the immigrants in our communities and gave them a leg up. So now they're entrenched among us. So of course, some of us get caught up in some of the raids. They call that collateral damage. But you got to be honest, who is responsible for this? Now, my first clip, I want to show you the Chicagoans and what they're saying. This for fair usage under the 1976 Copyright Act for education and commentary. And this guy, his name is Vince Dow. No, this is Hype Media. Now check it out.
A few days ago, we reported on ICE agents swooping in on an apartment complex located in South Shore, Chicago. According to reports, the raid would focus on Venezuelan gang members and illegal immigrants who lived in the apartment. Now, what will also be reported is that Black American citizens and children would be detained in the middle of the night, a part of the raid. Now, this has caused concerns across the internet and other media outlets following the story. Now, when it comes specifically to Black Americans being detained during this raid, fellow Black online users were going to express their fears of being ICE's next target. Across social media and sites like TikTok, several would react to the news of Black people being held for hours by ICE agents.
Y'all know what's next, right? There's going to be white American citizens who are asking Black American citizens for their papers, for their proof of citizenship, I wish I was being hyperbolic. I wish I was joking, but this is exactly where we're going. We're going to a place where a white boy feels he has permission, not feels he has permission, will actually have permission from the federal government to ask you for your papers. I keep saying that immigrant issues are black people's issue, and y'all keep pushing back, but I don't think y'all are hearing me or understand what I'm saying. I'm saying is they're going to use ICE to eventually harass us the way that they're harassing immigrant communities, not only ICE, but every federal agent, right? And we got to a point where you don't even have to be like a trained federal agent. They're literally just giving any white boy who wants to harass immigrants a job. But they're going to take it a step further, and they're going to give people permission to ask for other people's proof of residence.
FullScript gives patients the tools they need to keep their wellness on track, like a mobile app with dose reminders, refill. Now, surprisingly,
Now, just think about what he said and the idiocy of it. But this is the fear that the left is pushing out. That American citizens are going to be walking up to black Americans and say, show me your papers. They're using this fear tactic and this fear mongering to try to attach the black community to the immigrant community. They knew that some of us would be collateral damage, as I told you, but they still put our communities in harm's way.
despite the concerns that some felt about ICE targeting blacks in Chicago, some black Chicago residents are pushing back on these rumors, even thanking Trump and ICE's actions to clean up their neighborhood.
At this point, y'all have really pissed me off, especially you so-called influencers who are taking parts of stories coming out of Chicago and using it for fucking clickbait and engagement. Now, I have been urging my people here to pause so that they can process things. Y'all talking about them coming down on that building out south. Whole time, that building used to be predominantly black. That building was predominantly Venezuelans, okay? There are people from that neighborhood that have been complaining about that building for a year, okay? They showed y'all broken windows and shit that were already there. These are the things that y'all have to stop doing. And this is why I keep telling people here in the city, particularly black people, pause so you can process. If y'all start responding to shit out of emotion, then you don't know what the fucking play is, because you haven't had time to actually think. What people are doing are trying to get a rise out of black Chicagoans, okay? That was one incident. Then you had the guy out west that had the accident, and they pulled him out, and one of the agents was choking him, and people were recording it, okay? So again, follow-ups to all of these things, never. Nobody ever comes back with the follow-up. They talking about, oh, they're arresting black people in Chicago. All of the black people that they took from that building on the south side were released. The 37 people that they detained were all Venezuelans who were part of a particular gang. Y'all gotta stop doing that shit.
Chicago, you need to stop lying and saying, and people on this internet need to stop lying and saying that they're coming for black people. Yes, there was a building in a black community that was not majority black because it had been overran by illegal gang bangers. Let's be clear. So why everybody want to keep throwing that narrative around, half of South Shore is fucking invaded by illegals. That's the truth. So don't get on here saying black people are being came for. They're coming because they're in our neighborhoods and our communities. That's why. So yes, they're going to go in buildings where black people live and sleep because they put them in buildings where black people live and sleep. South Shore, born and raised. I know what I'm talking about. Stop pushing that narrative because it's not correct.
Now, this same user would then visit the South Shore apartment that was raided, where she would even confirm with a resident that the building had been taken over by Venezuelan immigrants.
Yeah, they been busting windows out. Okay, because see, that's again a narrative that they done put on social media is that The ICE came and busted out y'all windows. That's a lie. So them windows over there right there, they didn't bust out no window. ICE didn't bust out no windows. These was already busted on that floor up there. Same way you saying over here. This is the building that everyone is in an uproar about. So as I said, South Shore, this is your community, your neighborhood, and this building was not majority black when the ICE came the other day. Yes, black people were affected, but this building was overran by illegal Venezuelan gangs. And I just had several conversations with residents who are moving their stuff out of here that confirmed that. So stop letting media put that false narrative in your head that somebody coming for you, because they not. You was born here. You was born on this land. Rise up and stand up on something and stop letting any and everybody tell you something.
This conversation has caused many to question what rights do they have when encountering ICE, and do ICE agents need a warrant to arrest you? According to ICE.gov, agents can arrest you if they have suspicion. It goes on to read, ICE does not need judicial warrants to make arrests. Like all other law enforcement officers, can initiate consensual encounters and speak with people, briefly detain aliens when they have reasonable suspicion that the aliens are illegally present in the United States, and arrest people they believe are illegal aliens. ICE officers and agents can also detain and search people crossing the border. All aliens who violate U.S. immigration law are subject to arrest and detention, regardless of their criminal histories. Those with final orders of removal are removed from the United States. Now, according to NPR, the only time a warrant is needed by ICE is for arrests at homes or private businesses. In regards to the latest surrounding Chicago, protests have also begun in part of the city from those opposed to ICE's presence in Chicago. And this appears to now being used as a reason to send in the National Guard by the Trump administration. In a statement given to ABC7, a White House spokesperson would confirm Trump's move to follow through with sending in the National Guard. Amidst ongoing violent riots and lawlessness, the local leaders like Illinois Governor Fitzer have refused to step in to quell. President Trump has authorized 300 National Guardsmen to protect federal officers and assets. President Trump will not turn a blind eye to lawlessness plaguing American cities. So let's talk about it more in the comments below. What do you take from this latest response by President Trump to send in the National Guard to Chicago? And do you agree with these black Chicago residents that maybe this was a good thing to happen in their neighborhoods? Stay today for the latest news in comedy, culture, and sports by subscribing.
Now, what's interesting about the end part is that President Trump now is talking about sending in the National Guard to help the ICE agents, because Chicago police refuses to even appear or come up when ICE asks them for help or backup. So you have a city in total rebellion to the federal government. And I want you to see Brandon Johnson himself when he calls for his so-called insurrection. And it's really insane for a mayor with all the rhetoric and hysteria in the community to be talking Civil War talk as if that's an option to stop illegals from being deported. I mean, I'm gonna let you listen to this.
Hey, video creator. With Artlist, you'll get everything your videos need. And now,
what exactly does that mean from a city perspective?
Now, I want you to listen carefully to what Mayor Johnson says.
What exactly does that mean from a city perspective?
Everything.
Meaning?
Everything. Whatever is necessary. The right wing in this country wants a rematch of the Civil War. The President of the United States of America has declared war on the people of Chicago and people across America.
So this morning, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson held what may be the most unhinged press conference I've ever seen. But the takeaways are very interesting. Because if you've been at all skeptical of what we've been trying to tell you over the past several weeks, whether it's that the Democrat Party at this point is now aiding and sponsoring the political violence in our country. Far from just turning a blind eye to Antifa, they're just encouraging them at this point. The mask is off, right? Or that local governments are engaged in insurrection, and yes, that's the proper term, against the federal government when it comes to these immigration and sanctuary city issues. Look no further to the exact words of Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, who's going to say to your face that in his eyes, Chicago is at civil war, and yes, he said that, with the federal government, and that, and I quote, nothing is off the table. So I ask this in sincere good faith as someone who does not want violence in this country and would prefer that federal law and local law are in synchronization and they can be enforced, and the police and National Guard, for instance, don't have to be in this issue of like clashing with one another. What is that supposed to mean? How else are we supposed to interpret that? You know, I'm a true believer that when Democrats say things, you should believe them. You should not believe that these are some type of irony or master troll artists, not considering they're not even really the party of comedy to begin with, right? And that there's no other way to interpret what they're saying than what they're saying. So in today's video, ladies and gentlemen, I want to bring you this full story. We'll show you what was said by the Chicago mayor, because you're probably sitting here and saying, did he really say that, Vince? Are you taking it out of context? No, we'll show you 100%. This is what is going on. And by the way, for people who have said, Vince, why are you saying Trump needs to invoke the Insurrection Act in some of these sanctuary cities? Gee, I don't know, because the Democrat politicians are openly saying they're engaged in insurrection, and when it comes to the policies and the things that are actually happening, they're proving that they're engaging in insurrection, right? All the way down to, again, this very idea that Brandon Johnson is confirming, which is that Chicago PD indeed are being told not to respond to violence against ICE, even when it happens in their own city streets. So we'll get into it, guys. First, though, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. That's the best way to support our work and ensure that we can keep bringing you these videos. And that said, so this all started this morning when Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson announced he would be signing an executive order to create ICE-free zones to ban ICE agents from city property. Now, on the surface, this sounds like more performative Karen Bass style nonsense, right? Oh, get out of our city, but they have no jurisdiction. But as I'll point out in a second, I think it goes a little deeper than that, given the context of everything else Brandon Johnson is saying. But first, take a listen.
And today, we are signing an executive order aimed at reining in this out-of-control administration. The order establishes ICE-free zones. That means that city property and unwilling private businesses will no longer serve as staging grounds for these raids.
Okay, yeah, well, needless to say, this order means nothing. Federal law supersedes local and state law, 12th grade civics, ladies and gentlemen, and Brandon Johnson has no actual jurisdiction here. But before you just laugh it off, here's the genuine concern and question I have. So what happens if ICE agents show up to city property? Will Chicago PD then arrest them? Are they authorized to use force against ICE agents? Right, what's going on here? And what does it actually mean? Well, if you think maybe I'm just being paranoid on that front, let's take a listen as Brandon Johnson explains that everything is on the table in his own words in regards to these no ICE zones in his own city. So I again ask the question, what exactly do you mean when you say a no-go for ICE? Is it just like this performative grandstanding? Or do you actually mean you're going to like create a fake local law and enforce one that is illegal, but doing it nonetheless? And again, I say in that case, you think I'm crazy for saying they want an insurrection and they're actually engaged in an insurrection against the federal government? In my eyes, these words are as clear as that can actually get.
Take even more dramatic action if this administration continues to escalate. What exactly does that mean from a city perspective?
Everything.
Meaning?
Everything. whatever is necessary to ensure that we're protecting people. Look, I've already signed, this is the third executive order, the most sweeping executive orders from any executive office pushing back against this administration. We are looking at every single way in which we can protect people. And as the coming days come forward, there are many ideas that have already been placed in our collective circle. And I'm giving serious considerations around another potential executive order later this week.
Okay, so again, I sincerely hope that I'm wrong, and I'm just the one taking them out of context here. But what is that supposed to mean? Whatever is necessary, everything is on the table, and nothing is off the table. Well, how are we supposed to interpret that? But you might be saying, oh, Vince, clearly he's talking about legitimate political and legal actions. He's going to try to pass city ordinances. He's going to take it to the courts. Let's not take things out of context, right? Except you would be wrong. Because then take a listen in the same exact press conference where he talks about no-go zones, whatever's necessary, everything's on the table, proceeds to explain how in his eyes there's a civil war going on in our country and comparing it to the actual Civil War, which you know was a war, right? So when I say that these city governments are engaged in insurrection, I'm not making that up. I'm genuinely not trying to take them out of context. I'm reacting to what they're actually saying. So that said, if you're still skeptical of like the kind of narrative I'm trying to paint here, take a listen to the very words of Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson explaining exactly how he is engaged in insurrection against the United States. Take a listen.
Well, look, our corporate counsel has been in constant communication with our Attorney General for several months now. And I just wanted to offer this up. A couple of years ago, I said very candidly that the right wing in this country wants a rematch of the Civil War. I want that to sit in right now because the President of the United States of America has declared war on the people of Chicago and people across America. That's right. He's more interested in giving billions of dollars to other nations while farmers in urban cities around this country are literally being destabilized. And so whether it's the legal system, whether it's through executive order, or whether it's through the brave women and men who are serving as rapid responders. We literally have people who are volunteering in this city, on the southwest side, the northwest side, all over this city to make sure that we're protecting children from being separated from their families. And we're talking about volunteers who are literally putting themselves at risk of being shot and killed by the federal government. And so whether it's the legal system, whether it's our continuous struggle for liberation through organizing, and whether it's through executive action or whether it's through law, it would be nice if we actually had lawmakers in Washington that would actually hold this president accountable. And if they won't do it, then the city of Chicago will, using every single tool that's available to us.
Yeah, okay. Well, first of all,
I'm going to end on that note because Brandon Johnson is talking actual tough as if Chicago wants to secede from the Union in defense of illegal immigrants. You guys don't see something wrong with this picture? He's willing to risk everything. Sacrifice the black community who voted him in to protect these immigrants. Why? He doesn't love them. He doesn't even love his own. You got to think about the language and you got to think about the rhetoric. It's almost that they are in desperate need of black people in their feelings taking deportation personally as if they snuck across the border themselves. These are perilous times. And you have to read between the lines because Trump is being defied. ICE is being attacked. So they actually are daring Trump to bring in the National Guard into Chicago. And you got to ask yourself why. Well, this Detroit's HPTV, signing to you out of Detroit. As always, keep your head on a swivel. Salute to all patrons. Like, share, and subscribe. Peace.